Clear water flows steadily from the water dispenser, falls into the fine filter, disperses the coffee powder, and stimulates a rich aroma. While silently making coffee, Lucas recalled the key points in his phone's memo in his mind. After confirming that everything was correct, he removed the filter, poured in milk, and finally sprinkled on the crucial cinnamon powder. After brewing the coffee, he held it in his hand, straightened his back, and walked towards the president's office. Two men were chatting and laughing in the office. One of the middle-aged men was slightly overweight and looked amiable. He was today's guest, the boss of the supplier, who came directly to the company to discuss business. The other young man was sitting on the sofa with a smile on his handsome face. He was looking at his business partner attentively and saying a few words from time to time, polite and calm. This is Lucas's supervisor, Leo, the controlling shareholder and executive president of Shearway Technology. Lucas was transferred from the administrative management department to the president's side last month and became Leo's exclusive administrative secretary. He has an independent desk at the entrance of the president's office and is specifically responsible for assisting Leo with the company's daily affairs. The nature of his work has changed significantly. Lucas has been extremely cautious this month. The previous Secretary General shared all the experience he had accumulated over 5 years of work with him without reservation. Lucas jotted down the key points in his mobile phone memo and recited them repeatedly, only hoping to avoid mistakes and live up to this promotion and salary increase. Lucas carried the coffee and walked in front of the two men. He bent down and gently placed the coffee cup on the coffee table, then spoke up at the right moment. "Mr. President John, please have some." After saying that, he was about to take a few steps back and leave. President John didn't reach out for the coffee. A flash of confusion crossed Lucas' mind. Although President John is old, he likes coffee rather than tea, and he must add cinnamon powder to his coffee. All these are clearly written in the previous secretary's memo. There shouldn't be any mistake. Leo glanced at Lucas, then said to President John with a smile, "My new secretary has just taken office. He's young and inexperienced. He needs some practice." President John laughed heartily and said, "For young people, take it slow." Leo turned to Lucas and said with a smile, "Did you forget? President John said last time that he would never touch cinnamon again. Remember this better." Lucas stepped forward to pick up the coffee again and said to President John seriously, "Sorry, President John. It's my fault. I'll go and make you a new cup." He calmly and quickly exited the president's office and brewed the coffee again expressionlessly. It wasn't that he had a bad memory. Instead, when he took over from the previous secretary, there was a gap in the handover. President John had changed his tea drinking habits in the meantime, and he was unaware of it. He couldn't defend himself. He could only take the blame and admit it was his own negligence. After making a new cup of coffee, this time President John took a sip with a smile and praised, "Not bad." Looking at Lucas, he said to Leo, "I was just thinking why you found a male secretary. Now it seems he's really good. Not to mention anything else, his physical appearance is extremely outstanding." Lucas was already used to people always noticing his face first no matter what he did. He lowered his eyes and smiled, humble and upright. Leo said, "As long as he looks okay. What on earth is going on with the Import and Export Bureau?" Lucas understood that it was time to get down to business and left the office. President John left after discussing matters with Leo. When Lucas returned after seeing off President John, Leo was not in the office but leaning against the secretary's desk by the door, looking up at Lucas. Leo would smile like a flower when facing business partners but often wore a sour face in private. Lucas walked up to Leo and called out, "Mr. Leo?" Leo said, "Are you as old as the hills?" Lucas was taken aback. Leo continued, "Your memory is even worse than mine. Are you suffering from Alzheimer's?" Lucas lowered his head and meekly said, "Sorry. That's how it is for a secretary. Whatever the boss says is right and they have to take the blame for everything." Looking at the top of Lucas's head, Leo expressionlessly informed him, "Just now President John said that the Import and Export Bureau has a new policy regarding raw materials. Go and call Henry over, gather the experts for a discussion and arrange a dinner for them tonight." Leo looked down at the time and added, "I'll show up at the dinner for 10 minutes. Lucas immediately said, "Okay, Mr. Leo." Leo looked up and said unhappily, "Didn't you have enough to eat? You sound so listless." Lucas immediately raised his voice and replied loudly, "I'll go and make the arrangements right away, Mr. Leo." Frowning, Leo stepped away from Lucas and said, "Do you think I'm deaf, shouting so loudly?" Leo turned around and walked towards his office. Halfway there, he seemed to sense something and suddenly looked back at Lucas. Lucas stood upright at the back, looking respectful and impeccable. Leo squinted his eyes and sized up Lucas from head to toe. After looking for a while, he finally walked into the office. After the president entered the room, Lucas walked back to his seat and called Assistant Henry on the internal phone. Henry is the president's special assistant responsible for assisting Leo in business matters. Lucas informed Henry, who was working outside, then contacted the restaurant to book a dinner for the evening and then coordinated the president's schedule. The president is extremely busy. Even if he only shows up for 10 minutes, it will cause a series of changes and delays in the schedule. It is necessary to inform the relevant units in advance. By the time Lucas finished dealing with these matters, it was already lunch break. He sighed and called his boyfriend Benjamin before having a meal. "Sorry, Benjamin. I can't make it tonight. There's some urgent work." Lucas was full of apologies. Originally, he and Benjamin had made an appointment to go and look at some household items tonight, but now it seemed that he might not be able to get away. He wasn't sure if Leo would take him along tonight. As a secretary, sometimes he only needed to stay in the company, and sometimes he had to go out on errands with the president. Leo didn't mention him when arranging the work just now. It would be troublesome if Leo needed him but he wasn't around. There came a faint sigh from the other end of the phone. Benjamin said, "You're busier than me." Benjamin is a teacher at a local university. Previously, when Shearway Technology carried out industry-university research cooperation with the university, Lucas got to know him. After getting to know each other, the two became a couple. It had only been 3 months since they became a couple, and they were in the sweetest stage. Lucas suddenly became busier with work, while Benjamin moved out of the school dormitory and found a house off campus, which needed to be furnished with some supplies. Lucas was very touched, thinking that Benjamin moved for him, and he offered to help him with the arrangements. They had originally planned to buy some daily necessities today, but Lucas had to cancel the appointment. Lucas said apologetically, "You know our president. I have to be on standby all the time." Benjamin said, "The evil capitalist." Lucas quietly curled the corners of his lips. "It's okay. Go and be busy. We can do it another day. It's not urgent," Benjamin said. "I knew you were the best." Seeing that there was no one around, Lucas coquettishly drawled to Benjamin. The two lingered on the phone for a while. Then Lucas hung up the phone and sat expressionlessly behind the desk, once again becoming the rigid and professional secretary. Sure enough, in the evening, Leo took Lucas with him. Henry had already contacted all the experts. They held an urgent meeting in the afternoon and had dinner together in the evening. Lucas arrived at the restaurant in advance and arranged everything. Then the experts came along with Henry. At the crucial moment, Leo showed up. With a straight face, he strode towards the private room. The well-tailored suit on him exuded an air of abstinence in its meticulousness. Coupled with his tall stature and distinct features, he walked with the aura of a mafia boss. But the moment he stepped into the private room, his expression immediately changed. The corners of his mouth lifted slightly, and a kind look appeared in his eyes. His sharpness turned into grace as he greeted the experts sitting there. Lucas saw this and thought to himself that Mr. Leo must have graduated from a film academy. Inside, the group was chatting and laughing. Lucas didn't go in but stood guard outside. Soon, Henry came out. Lucas quickly asked, "Assistant Henry, do you need anything?" Henry smiled and said, "It's okay. I'm just coming out to make a phone call." Henry didn't rush to make the call but asked, "Secretary Lucas, have you had your meal?" Lucas shook his head and said, "I'll eat later." Henry said, "I'll ask the restaurant to arrange something for you." Lucas waved his hand and said, "No need, Assistant Henry." A smile appeared on his face as he said, "I've made an appointment and will have dinner with someone later." Lucas had just calculated the time. He thought that it shouldn't be too late after finishing the work at hand. He couldn't go to look at furniture, but he should still be able to accompany Benjamin. Henry suddenly understood and said, "Oh, I see," he said teasingly. "Is it that associate professor?" Lucas felt a bit embarrassed. Even Assistant Henry knew about this. However, since Benjamin had dealt with Shearway's R&D department, it was not surprising. "Henry," said rather jealously, It's not easy for people in our line of work to squeeze out time for a relationship. For me, I don't even know if my future wife is fat or thin. Should the company assign you a wife? A cold voice came. Henry and Lucas shuddered simultaneously and quickly exclaimed, Mr. Leo. Leo controlled everything just right. He said he would only appear for 10 minutes, and it was exactly 10 minutes, neither a single minute more nor less. Leo glanced at the two of them and said to Henry, Entertain the experts well. Most of these experts had participated in policy research and were of great value. Then he lifted his chin slightly to signal Lucas. You. Lucas quickly took the order, thinking there was some arrangement. But Leo said, You're not needed anymore. Step down. Lucas almost shouted, Thank you, Your Majesty, but held it back. With a worried look on his face, he looked at Leo and asked, Mr. Leo, is there anything else? Leo was a bit displeased. You're just in the way if you stay. Lucas immediately said, Then see you tomorrow, Mr. Leo. After saying that, he took a step back, turned around calmly, and left at a moderate pace. Leo didn't immediately proceed to the next item on his schedule. Instead, he asked Henry, Who is the associate professor? The president had indeed eavesdropped on their conversation. Henry replied, Secretary Lucas' boyfriend is an associate professor at S City University. He used to cooperate with the R&D department. Leo showed no expression and said, At such a young age, all he knows is to be in love. A man should strive for his career. Henry thought to himself, if everyone only has their career in mind and is just like you, they'll still be single at 30. Lucas was extremely happy that he got off work early. He immediately called Benjamin. The phone rang for a long time before it was answered. Lucas said, Benjamin, the boss showed mercy unexpectedly. I got out early. I'll come to you. After a while, Benjamin replied, But I heard you were busy, so I arranged some work for myself and can't get away now. Lucas was stunned upon hearing this. Benjamin's voice was a bit hoarse as he sighed and said, Sorry. Lucas' excited heart cooled down. He smiled and said, Why do you need to apologize? It was my fault at first. I was the one who broke the promise first. He pretended to be calm and said, Then let's do it next time. Benjamin hesitated for a moment and said, Wait for me for half an hour. I'll arrange the things in hand and come over. Lucas' mood became lively again because of Benjamin's words. He still pretended to be polite and said, Am I disturbing you? Maybe we'd better forget it. Benjamin said a hasty wait for me and then hung up the phone. Lucas hadn't eaten yet. He walked to the nearest commercial street, found a place to sit and silently waited for Benjamin, planning to have a meal with him when he came. The temperature was not low and the weather was not cold. Instead of going into the store, Lucas found a bench and sat by the road. The young man casually stretched his long legs and leaned back in the chair, looking at the pedestrians in front of him. His delicate eyebrows and eyes were like a painting, and his dark and bright eyes seemed to contain spring water. He was a pleasure to look at, and people couldn't help but want to get close to him. There were several girls nearby who started to get eager to approach Lucas to ask for his WeChat. However, seeing his formal suit, they didn't dare to get close. Lucas was in a good mood because he got off work early. He felt relaxed and happy sitting by the road, enjoying the gentle breeze. However, after waiting for a long time and Benjamin still didn't come, he gradually became a bit annoyed. It was supposed to be half an hour, but more than an hour had passed and Benjamin still hadn't come. Lucas had already rejected the fifth group of people who came to strike up a conversation. Finally, Benjamin arrived. I was delayed by some work. Sorry to have kept you waiting for so long. Benjamin was still out of breath when he rushed over. Lucas softened his heart and said, It's okay. It's all because of me today. He quickly changed the topic and coquettishly said to Benjamin, I haven't eaten all the time. I'm starving. Benjamin curled his lips and said, Poor thing. Your boss asks you to work overtime but doesn't even give you a meal. Lucas said, It's already good that he didn't scold me. He has a cleanliness fetish and is a perfectionist. He's as narrow-minded as a needle's eye. Today, he scolded me just because of a small thing about making coffee. How can he, a big boss, remember such trivial things so clearly? Benjamin patted his hand and said, All right. You always mention your CEO every time we date. When we're together, don't mention other men. Lucas pouted and said, okay, I won't mention him. Let's go. There's a Japanese ramen restaurant in front. I want to eat that. The two walked forward shoulder to shoulder, looking very intimate. Nowadays, same-sex marriage is no longer a rare thing, and there are many same-sex couples on the street. It's not strange for Lucas and Benjamin to be like this. It's just that Lucas is so eye-catching that people often turn around to look at him. But after seeing the other man beside him, those people would feel regretful. Lucas is good-looking, and it's not an aggressive kind of beauty. Instead, he gives people a gentle and refreshing feeling, handsome and upright. Walking with Lucas really makes one look good. Benjamin stared at Lucas. Lucas turned his head and asked, what's wrong? Benjamin shook his head with a smile. It's nothing. I'm just worried. What if someone in the company lures you away? Lucas was transferred to be the secretary in front of the president a month ago, which always made Benjamin uncomfortable. Originally, Benjamin didn't like the fact that Lucas, a grown man, was doing administrative work. The fact that the big boss suddenly took a fancy to Lucas was even more disturbing. Lucas didn't know what was on Benjamin's mind. He just said, everyone knows I'm taken. He winked at Benjamin with a smile. But you can't be careless. You have to tie me up tightly. After joking with each other for a few words, Lucas finally noticed that Benjamin's hair was wet and asked, did you take a shower? Benjamin was stunned for a moment and his expression became a little unnatural. He replied, I went to the laboratory today and got really dirty. I took a quick shower before going out, so I was delayed. He pointed to the shop in front and said, we're here. Let's go in. Lucas was quickly attracted by the delicious food and didn't think much about other things. The next day, Leo didn't come to the company and stayed outside all the time. Lucas stayed in the office to handle some visitors on behalf of Leo. After looking at the computer for a whole morning, his eyes were a bit sore. Lucas rubbed his eyes, and this scene happened to be seen by Henry, who was passing by. Henry walked over and teased Lucas, it seems you stayed out last night. Lucas blurted out, I didn't stay out overnight. Immediately after he said that, he regretted it. He should have just glossed it over. Assistant Henry is very capable in business, but he is just too unreliable. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been an assistant for 8 years and still couldn't get promoted. Sure enough, Henry got excited. Leaning on Lucas's desk, he asked, how could your boyfriend bear to let you go back? Lucas blushed a little and said, everyone is very busy. Henry observed Lucas's expression and showed an incredulous look. You're not still a virgin, are you? Lucas was extremely embarrassed. He thought to himself, so what if he was a virgin? Did being a virgin eat into Henry's family's rice? But he remained calm on the surface and said, it's not appropriate to discuss this among colleagues, is it? He knew that he had good looks, so many people always thought that he was chased by many people, had rich experience in the dating scene, and was a playboy. In fact, it was not like that at all. Henry also sensed the awkwardness and quickly said, I didn't mean anything else. He was a little annoyed. I was just joking around. Don't take it to heart. Lucas said, it's okay. I understand. Henry quickly slipped away. Even when he walked far away, he still couldn't help but say, your boyfriend is a saint. Although he was a straight man, he still couldn't understand Lucas's boyfriend. How could he resist having such a beauty by his side? Lucas stood up from his seat and Henry quickly walked away. Lucas shook his head and sat back down. Assistant Henry held a high-ranking position. His power in the company was second only to that of several vice presidents. But he was so impulsive that it was really hard for people to have a sense of awe for him. Lucas seemed not to care on the surface, but privately he was pondering over Henry's words. Benjamin's relationship with him was indeed more like that of close friends. They hadn't taken the final step, maybe because both of them were very busy. After Benjamin moved this time, their relationship should make some progress, right? Lucas cleared his throat, pulled his thoughts back, and continued to work on the computer. After being out for a few days, Leo finally stayed in the company for a whole day. Lucas became even more nervous and always kept his attention highly focused, not daring to make any mistakes. Since Lucas became Leo's secretary a month ago, he had been criticized countless times and had his mistakes picked out countless times. When Leo was around, his nerves were as tense as a stretched-out string. He was in a daze every day after going home. Several times he woke up in the middle of the night, and in a daze, he climbed onto the internet to post a message asking netizens, am I being emotionally manipulated by my boss? Netizens usually advise people to break up rather than reconcile. They told Lucas to fire his boss. How could Lucas dare to do that? Moreover, he had just taken up his post. It wasn't his character to back down now. Lucas could only demand that he do better and be impeccable so that Leo would have nothing to say. He was sitting outside the president's office, silently reciting the secretary's code in his mind when suddenly there was a visitor. A message came from the front desk. Mr. Carter from Shersheen is here and has gone upstairs directly. Lucas quickly stood up, knocked on the door and told Leo, Mr. Carter from Shersheen is coming upstairs. Leo frowned, looking a bit impatient, but still suppressing his temper. He said, bring him in directly later. He glanced at Lucas and added, don't delay. Okay. Lucas took the order and stepped outside to wait for Mr. Carter. Who is Mr. Carter? This question has to start with Leo's father. Leo's father is called Alexander. He is an outstanding entrepreneur. Alexander was originally a management cadre in a state-owned enterprise. In his prime, he left the state-owned enterprise to start his own business and gradually developed it, establishing Bangtian Energy Group. Bangtian Group has now developed into a well-known large enterprise in the country. Several of its subsidiaries are doing well. Among them, the two largest companies are Yaoi Technology and Shersheen Technology. Both companies are engaged in battery production. Yaoi mainly produces power batteries, which are used in new energy vehicles, while Shersheen produces digital batteries used in technological products such as mobile phones and power banks. In the past, there were few new energy vehicles, so the scale of Yaoi was not as large as that of Shersheen. Now that the country is strongly supporting new energy, Yaoi has caught the wave and is rising rapidly. It has developed better and better in the past 2 years and has surpassed Shersheen. The president of Yaoi is Leo, the youngest son of Alexander, and the president of Shersheen is Carter, a subordinate who has followed Alexander for 20 years. Carter has followed Alexander since he was a teenager. Although he doesn't have a high level of education, he is quick-witted and very loyal. He has accompanied Alexander all the way and has made a lot of contributions. Alexander entrusted Shersheen to him. In the era when everyone used AA and AAA batteries, Carter, a rough man who had little schooling, managed to recruit several senior technical personnel and expanded Shersheen. However, now in the era of new energy, Yaoi has caught up and overtaken, making Shersheen seem a bit outdated. Carter and Leo, one is Alexander's brother and the other is Alexander's son. On the surface, their relationship is okay, but Yaoi and Shersheen are secretly competing with each other, both wanting to be the most valued subsidiary of Bangtian Group. It's not known what Carter wants to talk to Leo about this time when he comes here in person. Just as Lucas stood at his post, Carter arrived. Lucas quickly bent slightly and shouted, Mr. Carter. Carter is in his 40s and manages his body well. He hasn't gained weight like ordinary middle-aged men, but his hooligan air can't be covered no matter how expensive a suit he wears. Carter raised his eyebrows when he saw Lucas and said, Oh, there's a new face here. Lucas said politely, Mr. Carter, I'm Mr. Leo's new administrative secretary. My name is Lucas. Carter walked towards Lucas with great interest and said, Leo is really something. There used to be a beautiful woman, and now there's a handsome man. He doesn't mind whether it's male or female at all. He's not afraid of getting tired. Secretaries hate it most when others imply the relationship between themselves and their bosses. Lucas couldn't get angry with the senior executive. He just said, Mr. Leo is waiting for you. Let me show you in. Carter said, Mr. Leo. Leo's zone is the zone of the president, while my zone is the zone of the general manager. Does he think his zone is more fashionable and can outrank me? Lucas realized that this man came here to pick a fight today. Lucas could only keep silent and continued, Please follow me. Carter took a step forward, blocked Lucas' way with his body, looked at Lucas with a smile and said coquettishly, Kid, you're really good looking. Why don't you work with me? Lucas felt a wave of nausea. Only then did he remember one of the experience rules of his predecessor when meeting Carter: try to stay close to Leo and never be alone with him. Lucas couldn't swear, so he could only keep silent. Carter pressed his advantage and got even closer. Just when Lucas was considering whether to punch him, the door of the president's office suddenly opened. Leo appeared at the door, looking at them with a solemn look. Carter straightened up and said casually, I had a little chat with your new secretary. Leo frowned and criticized Lucas. You talk too much. Why blame him for talking too much? He hardly said a few words. It was clearly this old lecher who was harassing him. Leo continued to say to him, don't talk so much next time. Come to see me directly. Lucas pursed his lips and said, I understand, Mr. Leo. Leo turned to Carter. Instead of smiling like he did when facing other business partners, he frowned and said, Mr. Carter, no matter how idle you are, you don't have to come here especially to kill time. Carter glanced at Lucas and said with a smile, Leo, don't be so fierce. I just saw there was a new guy here and took the time to teach him a thing or two. Leo said expressionlessly, I don't need Mr. Carter to teach my people. The smile on Carter's face froze for a moment and he quickly adjusted himself, saying, I really have something important to talk to you about today. After all, I'm your uncle. You're being so disrespectful. Leo stepped aside and walked into the office first, saying, welcome to talk about important matters. Carter put away his smile, stared at Leo's back with a sinister look in his eyes, and followed him in. Even though there was an unpleasant incident, Lucas still had to make tea for Carter. He quickly brewed the tea, handed it to Carter, and immediately backed out. Lucas sat at his own desk with his head down, lost in thought. Carter didn't stay long and walked out of the president's office with a bad look on his face. He didn't even glance at Lucas and just walked away. Lucas watched him leave and curled his lips. Then the intercom on Lucas's desk rang. Leo directly called him, come in. Lucas quickly walked towards the office with his head down and asked, Mr. Leo, what can I do for you? Leo looked at him and asked, didn't Ivy tell you what to do when you meet these people? Ivy was Lucas's previous president's secretary and is now transferred to another department as a manager. Lucas replied, she did. Only 3 words when talking to your superior? Lucas cleared his throat and said, report to the president. Ivy has told me all the key points for dealing with frequent visitors. Leo leaned back in his chair and looked at him intently, saying, then why did you make a mistake when President John came last time and still make a mistake when Mr. Carter came this time? Leo's desk was very large. Like all bosses, he liked to use the view outside the window as the wall hanging in his office. So, with the high-rise buildings outside and the spacious desk sitting there, he stared directly at people, exuding a strong sense of oppression. Lucas opened his mouth, wanting to defend himself. He had no idea that President John had changed his taste, and in the case of Mr. Carter, he was clearly the victim as Mr. Carter had made inappropriate physical contact with him. After thinking about it, he still didn't say a word. Whatever the president says is right. Lucas directly said, sorry, Mr. Leo, I won't make the same mistake again next time. Leo asked, do you know what you did wrong today? Lucas said, I shouldn't have talked so much with President John and wasted time. Leo said, it seems you still don't understand. Go back and copy the materials left by Ivy by hand. Didn't you just say I talked too much? Why is it still wrong now? Moreover, there are dozens of folders in the materials left by Ivy. I'll die if I copy them by hand. Leo raised his eyebrows and asked, unwilling? The president can say 3 words, but he can't. Lucas replied, I'm not unwilling. I'll do it right away. I even have to teach you such a trivial thing. Only then did Leo wave his hand, signaling him to go out. Lucas was about to leave when Leo called him back. Wait a minute. No matter how reluctant he was, Lucas still asked obediently, what else do you command, Mr. Leo? Leo stood up, pointed at the office, and said impatiently, call someone to clean this place up. After saying that, he picked up his clothes and left coldly through the door, even faster than Lucas. Only then did Lucas realize that his obsessive-compulsive cleanliness had flared up. Leo's obsessive-compulsive cleanliness is neither too serious nor too trivial. He can tolerate it in normal situations, but once he starts to care, it will be endless. He demands that all things be absolutely neat and clean, otherwise he will lose his temper. For example, it's okay for President John to come to the office, but not for Carter. The office must be cleaned again. Lucas left the president's office, called up the cleaner, and watched the cleaner clean and remove the odor. After ensuring that everything was in order, he sat back at his own desk, found Ivy's materials, lay on the table, and started copying them listlessly. Since he went to primary school, he hasn't been punished to copy things again. Unexpectedly, now that he's the president's secretary, he can relive his primary school days. Not only does he remember every little trivial matter, but he also shifts all the blame onto Lucas. The president truly lives up to his title with an incredibly broad mind. Lucas spent the whole afternoon copying at his desk. He felt that his wrist was about to break, but he gritted his teeth and kept writing. It was evening when Leo came back from outside. Seeing Lucas lying on the desk and writing non-stop, he paused for a few seconds before remembering what had happened. He walked up to Lucas and said, "Okay, that's enough." Lucas looked up and stared at the president with his dark eyes. Lucas is good looking, but the most beautiful part of his whole face is these eyes. Just looking at someone like this gives an affectionate feeling, making people can't help but want to respond to him. But at this moment, his look seemed rather resentful. Leo was stared at by Lucas for a long time. After a while, he asked, "Are you stupid?" Only then did Lucas come to his senses. He suddenly stood up and shouted, "Mr. Leo?" It seems that he really got stupid from copying the book. Leo stretched out his hand and placed his fingers on the buttons of his suit. He gracefully undid them, apparently coming back to continue working overtime. Lucas saw his slender fingers, which were as straight as bamboo, clean, tidy, and very strong. Leo lifted the hem of his clothes and bent down slightly to look at Lucas's expression. Lucas was still as calm as ever, showing no sign of grievance. Leo asked, "Do you know what to do next time you encounter that kind of person?" Lucas replied, "I should immediately report to you all matters that I can't handle." Only then did Leo nod and say, "You're just a secretary. You don't need to take on extra responsibilities. Let people at the same level handle things you can't handle. Don't just stand at the door stupidly and let others take advantage of you next time, understand?" Lucas wanted to say, "I didn't," but in the end, he didn't defend himself and said, "I understand. Thank you, Mr. Leo." Leo was about to enter his office. Lucas sat down and continued to lie on the desk. Leo asked, "What are you still doing here?" Lucas buried his head, only showing the top of it, and said, "Report to the president." "I haven't finished copying yet." Leo glanced at him and said, "Go back. You don't need to stay here. Stop pretending." Lucas is not a native of City S and currently rents an apartment near the company. After he got home, he casually had dinner and leaned back in his chair to digest the food. "My hands hurt so much. I don't want to do anything." Lucas took out his phone and sent a message to Benjamin. "Our president is so unreasonable. It's unimaginable that he actually punished me by making me copy materials by hand. Does he think I'm a primary school student?" Benjamin didn't reply. Maybe he was busy with an experiment. Lucas still couldn't let it go. He opened Baidu Encyclopedia, clicked on Leo's entry, saved the top photo of Leo, and then printed it out with a printer. Then he dug out the instant noodle prince doll that came with the instant noodles he bought and pasted Leo's photo on the big head of the instant noodle prince. In this way, he had a Mr. Leo doll. Lucas imitated Leo's tone and said to the doll, "Primary school student, copy the materials once." He grabbed the two short arms of the doll, pressed the doll's hands on the table, and imitated the writing motion while muttering, "Copy faster. Don't stop." The Mr. Leo doll lay on the edge of the table with the paper printed with Leo's big face against the tabletop. Its short hands were controlled by Lucas to copy and write. At first, Lucas felt great, as if he was forcing the president to do the same thing as him. But after writing for a while, his hands hurt even more. He threw the Mr. Leo aside and said, "Making you copy, but I'm the one who gets tired." Lucas slumped on the bed, picked up the doll, pointed at Leo's face, and said, "You think being the president makes you so great? You always talk in questions and look at people sideways. Do you think being handsome and rich gives you the right to do whatever you want?" He was holding the doll and complaining when suddenly his phone rang, which gave him a big scare. Lucas quickly put the Mr. Leo aside and picked up his phone to check. A message from the special contact, "Mr. Leo, came in. There's a temporary meeting tomorrow morning. Get prepared." Lucas sat on his knees on the bed in a very proper posture and replied, "Okay, Mr. Leo. I understand." After he replied, he realized that no one was watching him. Why was he still so timid? He shouted and resignedly got up, then turned on his computer to continue working. One of Lucas's job tasks is to help the president receive and send documents. One day, he saw a document that needed to be sent to the administrative management department. He had an idea, picked up the document, and wanted to take the initiative to deliver it downstairs. He used to work in the administrative management department. He wanted to take this opportunity to go back and say hello to his old colleagues. With this thought in mind, Lucas walked downstairs and knocked on the glass door of the administrative management department. "Look who's here. Isn't this the handsome Mr. Yi?" When his former colleagues saw Lucas, they greeted him one after another. There are many girls in the administrative management department. Among them, two have a good relationship with Lucas. One is called Chloe and the other is Nora. Chloe stepped forward, smiling at Lucas and saying, "Secretary Lucas has come to see us?" Lucas smiled and handed the document in his hand to her, saying, "This is a document from the president's office. You take it." "Sure thing." Thanks for making this trip in person, Secretary. Chloe took the document and turned to call Nora. Nora, Lucas is here. As a result, instead of coming over, Nora stood up directly from her workstation, didn't even look at Lucas, and turned away. Seeing this, Chloe felt a bit embarrassed and said to Lucas she might have diarrhea. Just ignore her. Lucas remembered that when the notice of his transfer was announced before, Nora seemed a bit unhappy. He didn't expect that she still minded it now. Lucas smiled and said, "It's okay. How are you guys?" Holding the document, Chloe said, "We're still the same. All the menial tasks in this company are assigned to us. How about you?" She blinked expectantly and asked, "Is it exciting to work with the big boss?" Lucas thought to himself that it was indeed exciting, as the boss picked on him every day. He smiled and said, "It's okay. I'm still doing menial work just for the president." Chloe said enviously, "That's different. Our president is so handsome. It's a pleasure to look at him every day. Leo is very popular in the company because he is handsome and rich. Moreover, under his leadership, the company has made great progress in recent years and everyone's salary and benefits have improved a lot. So the employees respect him very much." Lucas thought again that distance really makes the heart grow fonder. Before, he also looked forward to the president very much. He was so excited that he couldn't sleep for 2 nights after learning about his transfer. But when he got to Leo's side, he realized that this person seemed cold on the outside but was actually extremely fussy. Lucas couldn't complain to his colleagues and could only keep smiling. Chloe said, "But you must be used to seeing a handsome man when you look in the mirror every day." Lucas chatted with other colleagues for a while and then went upstairs back to the president's office. Until he left, Nora didn't return to her seat. Obviously, she didn't want to see him. Lucas sighed and got on the elevator. As soon as he returned to his seat, Leo summoned him. Lucas knocked on the door and entered. Before he could even take his first step, he heard Leo ask, "Did you wash your hands?" Lucas was stunned for a moment and replied, "No." With a straight face, Leo said, "Wash your hands when you come back from outside." Lucas silently backed out, washed his hands, dusted off his clothes, and then came back in. Leo asked with his head down while looking at the documents, "Where did you go just now?" Standing in front of the president's desk, facing the bustling city view outside the window, Lucas said, "I just went to the administrative department downstairs to deliver something." Leo looked up at him and said, "I know what you're thinking. You should wash your hands whenever you use the elevator." Lucas said, "I understand." Not wanting to dwell on the issue of hand washing, he asked, "Do you have any instructions, Mr. Leo?" Leo was only wearing a shirt. Because he had a cleanliness fetish, his clothes were always very clean, almost to the point of being neurotic. Even the folds on his collar were neatly arranged with perfect creases. Leo said, "You can just ask the others in the president's office to deliver the issued documents. You don't have to go there yourself every time." Lucas blinked, not understanding what the president meant. Leo stared at him coldly and made it clear, "Go to the administrative department less. You've already left there." Lucas was completely confused. Apparently, his trips to the administrative department had made Leo unhappy, which was simply unreasonable. Why couldn't he go back to his old department to have a look? It wasn't like they had to be enemies just because he had left. Lucas didn't understand, and Leo was too lazy to explain. He lowered his head again to look at the documents and said, "Anyway, go there less or you won't even know how you die." Lucas mechanically repeated, "I understand, Mr. Leo." Without even looking up, Leo waved his hand. Lucas exited the office and sat down at his own seat. The more I think about it, the more absurd it seems. How could the big boss even care about this? He can go wherever he wants. It's his freedom. Moreover, his words were so unpleasant. What does "not even know how he died" mean? He should make himself clear. Lucas was full of grievances and he carried them through the weekend. He originally wanted to go out with Benjamin to relax, but Benjamin was working on a big project recently and had to do experiments on the weekend and couldn't get away. Benjamin teaches at the School of Materials of S-City University. He happens to be doing research on batteries, so he has a cooperation with Shearway's R&D department. Benjamin is only an associate professor and doesn't have a separate office. It's not convenient to take Lucas into the campus, so he asked Lucas to wait at the house he rented outside. Coincidentally, Benjamin had already moved some things there, so Lucas helped him tidy them up. Although the faculty dormitory on campus is cheap in rent, it's quite old and inconvenient to live in. So Benjamin moved off campus. The new house he found has 3 bedrooms. It's spacious and bright, much more imposing than the small dormitory on campus. In the city where housing prices are sky high, the rent is probably not cheap. Lucas knew that teachers' salaries were generally not high. He always felt that Benjamin moved for him, so he also felt sweet while packing things up. Benjamin didn't have many belongings. He wasn't the kind of person who bought things randomly. That's exactly what Lucas liked about him. He was honest and didn't do anything flashy. Just as Lucas was thinking this, he saw a handicraft placed in the bedroom. That handicraft was a small sculpture of a mermaid-like woman sitting on a pile of skeletons. The problem was that this woman was completely naked, had wings, and was looking upwards. In Lucas' opinion, this sculpture might be trying to express the theme of environmental protection. Probably, the handicraft was placed on the bedside table, since the bedroom was still empty as no one had lived in it yet. This avant-garde handicraft was particularly prominent and out of place with the simple bedroom. It didn't seem to be Benjamin's style at all. Maybe it was a gift from a student to teacher Xie. It was useless, so Benjamin just brought it here first. Lucas didn't think much about it and continued to move Benjamin's luggage in. When it was almost mealtime, Benjamin called Lucas and asked him to go downstairs to a nearby restaurant to have dinner together. Lucas put down what he was doing and went to the bathroom to wash his hands. When he flushed the water, he suddenly thought of Leo and couldn't help shivering. What should I do if I keep thinking about the CEO every time I wash my hands? Has he really been brainwashed? Lucas quickly turned off the faucet, stopped thinking about those random things, and walked out of Benjamin's new rental house. The new residence is not far from the school, and the restaurant Benjamin chose is also nearby. This restaurant is a new-style Chinese restaurant with a design of winding water channels. The per capita consumption is not low, and reservations are required. It's the peak dining time on a weekend night. Benjamin brought Lucas here and they got a table, which means he made a reservation in advance. After Lucas transferred to the CEO's office, his salary tripled directly, much higher than Benjamin's. Usually, he accommodates Benjamin and doesn't go to very expensive places to eat. It's really thoughtful of Benjamin to suggest this restaurant today. Lucas and Benjamin sat down in the hall. Benjamin said, "You've worked hard today. Order whatever you want. I'll treat you." Lucas said with a smile, "You're so generous recently. Did you get a bonus for completing a project?" Benjamin's eyes flashed and he said, "Yes." Benjamin was very extravagant today and ordered several very expensive main courses. Lucas kept saying on the side, "That's enough. There are only two of us. We can't eat much. It's not often that we come out to eat. Let's have something good," Benjamin said. "Do you want some wine?" Lucas glared at him complainingly and said, "But we can't waste food." Lucas has beautiful eyes. When he looks at people shyly, it makes people feel like a gentle breeze is blowing, and their hearts feel warm. Benjamin leaned over and said, "You can't look at people like this in the company." Lucas blinked and asked, "Why?" Benjamin said, "If you look at people like this, you'll steal their souls away." "No way." Lucas bit his lip and continued to glare at him. Benjamin lowered his voice even more and said, "Stay here tonight." Lucas was stunned, and a blush crept onto his face. Benjamin said to himself, "Although the house isn't fully furnished, it's okay to sleep here for one night." He looked at Lucas with a passionate look in his eyes. "Okay." Lucas had visited Benjamin's new house in the afternoon. Although it was big and new, many areas were not well arranged. There wasn't even a mattress, only a few newly brought bed sheets, and he didn't know if the hot water was ready. Lucas thought his first time should be in a more romantic and comfortable environment. But Benjamin had put a lot of effort into it today, so Lucas blushed and nodded. Benjamin showed his joy. After the dishes were served, he peeled shrimps and picked fish bones for Lucas, constantly putting food into Lucas's bowl. After being scalded in oil, the tender white fish was firm on the outside and soft on the inside. It melted in the mouth instantly with a faint sweetness. Lucas also felt sweet inside. Benjamin still ordered wine, which made the bill for this meal go up a bit more. Lucas didn't stop him for fear of spoiling the mood. He picked up his glass and the two clinked glasses. Lucas had an average alcohol tolerance, not as good as Benjamin's, who often dined with the research group. Moreover, he blushed easily after drinking. His cheeks became even more rosy, like being dyed with the glow of the sunset. Benjamin looked at Lucas's rosy face and lips and couldn't take his eyes off the moisture on his lips. He said, "Don't drink with the boss in the future." Lucas looked at Benjamin with a questioning look in his eyes, which were full of tenderness. There will definitely be a lot of business entertainment. Although he was just an administrative secretary, there would always be times when he had to go on field trips with the president. It was unavoidable to drink when doing business. Benjamin looked unhappy, so being a secretary has this drawback. Those big bosses will definitely ask you to drink on their behalf. Under the influence of the atmosphere and alcohol, Lucas's thinking became a bit dull. He said, I don't have this trouble for now. Mr. Leo simply doesn't let me go out with him. What I'm doing now are all very, very small things. Lucas pinched his little finger to illustrate. Just as petty as Mr. Leo. When mentioning Leo, Lucas had a lot of complaints. You tell me, as a big president in charge of such a large company and worth billions, why is he so petty? He's always nitpicking on trivial things. So what if I added a little cinnamon powder? So what if I didn't wash my hands? So what if I went to see my former colleagues? Benjamin's face darkened. Every time they met, there was always an unavoidable topic, which was Lucas's boss, Mr. Leo. Since Lucas became the president's secretary, he always complained about his boss in front of Benjamin. Benjamin began to regret bringing up the topic of the company. He said, all right, stop thinking about those things. Eat quickly. But Lucas had only poured out half of his complaints. He would feel uncomfortable if he couldn't pour them all out. He continued, do you know? 2 out of 3 sentences he says to me are questions. Can you understand that tone? He's just like a nitpicker. Benjamin thought to himself, now you're also using questions. The alcohol was steaming in Lucas's head, awakening his long, suppressed grievances. He gulped down a glass of wine and kept saying, and his misophobia, it's really terrible. It flares up irregularly. Sometimes you're on tenterhooks, but nothing happens. Sometimes you think it's okay, but he drags you back and says there's something wrong. Benjamin was getting a bit annoyed. He snatched Lucas's glass and said, all capitalists are like this. It's just work. Just endure it and it'll pass. Lucas pursed his lips, drooped his eyes, and said pitifully, do the proletariat have to be oppressed? Do we have to endure at work? Seeing him like this, Benjamin softened his heart again and coaxed him, if that's the case, then quit. I'll support you from now on. Lucas slapped the table, stared wide-eyed, and said, no way. We can't bow to the capitalists. He thought for a while and circled the topic back. I haven't finished yet. Mr. Leo's crimes are countless. Lucas counted on his fingers, listing Leo's misdeeds. In fact, he was just bad-mouthing the president behind his back, narrow-minded and hard to serve. Leo, heartless and unrighteous. He shouted at Benjamin, I think our president is crazy. As soon as Lucas finished speaking, he felt a pain in the back of his head. Someone hit him from behind. Who is it? He turned around angrily and saw Leo standing behind him, looking at him sinisterly. At that moment, Lucas felt like the Cambrian period had arrived. Otherwise, why was his blood running cold? His mind went blank, but the alcohol instantly wore off. Leo's profound facial features were extremely clear in his vision. Lucas stood up, pushed the chair away, stood upright, and stammered, Mr. Leo. Now Benjamin was also stunned. Just now he saw this well-dressed man suddenly come out from behind and hit Lucas on the back of the head. He was about to stop him when he met the man's eyes. They were gloomy and severe, with the disdain of a superior looking at an inferior. He clearly looked like someone not to be messed with. Coupled with the fact that the man was tall and his clothes were of a quality that was not ordinary, Benjamin hesitated for a moment, and then Lucas reacted and called out, Mr. Leo. Was this the crazy Mr. Leo that Lucas had been talking about? Benjamin was a bit surprised. Although he had contact with Shearway's R&D department, he had never dealt with higher-level people. He always heard Lucas mention Mr. Leo and thought he was a greasy middle-aged man with a big belly and a bald head. He didn't expect Mr. Leo to be so young and handsome. At this time, Lucas didn't care about Benjamin. The flush on his face faded and he stared at Leo with a deathly pale face. His lips trembling, he said, Mr. Leo, when did you come? Leo didn't answer his question. He gave Lucas a cold look and simply said, I'm not sick. And Secretary Lucas, you're fired. Upon hearing this, Lucas almost fainted from shock. Leo's eyes were cold from beginning to end. He looked at Lucas as if he were an inanimate object. After he finished speaking, he turned around and left. Lucas quickly followed and tried to grab Leo's sleeve. Mr. Leo, please listen to my explanation. It's all a misunderstanding. Leo turned around, looked at him warningly, and said, don't touch me. Lucas immediately withdrew his hand. Leo squinted his eyes and twitched the corners of his mouth, smiling insincerely as he said, I use rhetorical questions when I speak, like a nitpicker, petty, and hard to serve. From now on, I won't trouble Secretary Lucas to serve me anymore. It was obvious that he had heard all the things Lucas had said about him from the very beginning. Oh, right? To avoid you saying I'm heartless, I'll still pay you your salary on a daily basis. After saying these words, Leo straightened his collar and strode away. Lucas didn't dare to grab him again. He ran out after him and soon saw the new energy vehicle that Leo often used pass by him and drive away. Lucas stood at the restaurant entrance, speechless. For the first time, he hoped that the car using his company's battery would run out of power. He remembered how happy he was when he first received the HR transfer order and how much he looked forward to the job of the president's secretary. How did he end up in this mess? Naturally, the follow-up with Benjamin came to nothing. Lucas was in no mood at all. Benjamin comforted him and sent him home. He won't fire you just like that. Go and apologize to the boss properly, Benjamin said. Lucas thought to himself that Benjamin had said he would support him before, but now that he had caused trouble, he had changed his tune. Lucas didn't have the energy to argue with Benjamin. He returned to his rental house dejectedly. He lay on the table, thinking that he had just received last month's salary and was happy that he could save more money to buy a house. How did he ruin everything so suddenly? Why was he so mouthy? Why did he speak ill of his leader in public? Narrow-minded, argumentative, having a cleanliness fetish, petty, and hard to serve. Just thinking that Leo had stood behind him and heard everything he said, Lucas curled his toes so tightly that he wished he could dig out a 3-story villa. Why did Leo show up there? Even though this restaurant's consumption was too high for Benjamin, it should be below the standard for the president. He never expected to run into Leo. How unlucky he was. Lucas wished he could find a crack in the ground to crawl into now. But for his future and his salary, he had to tremble as he picked up his phone, found Leo in his contacts, and started typing in the chat box. He typed a long paragraph, then thought it was inappropriate. After deleting and revising, he finally decided to be sincere and only left one sentence. Mr. Leo, I'm really sorry about what happened today. Lucas summoned up his courage and clicked the send button. Then he found that he had been blocked by Leo. As expected of Mr. Leo, he's so quick and efficient. Since his messages were blocked, there was no need to mention calling. Such a proud person. After hearing someone scolding him, it was already very gracious of him not to beat that person up in public or sue him for slander. Putting himself in Mr. Leo's shoes, if he were in Mr. Leo's position and someone scolded him, he would surely tear that person to pieces. Lucas let out a wail and slumped over the table, unable to get up again. On Monday, Lucas went to the company with a feeling of going to his own execution. He even started looking for jobs on recruitment websites. He could already imagine that when applying for other companies, the HR would ask him why he left his previous company. He would stammer and be unable to explain clearly. Then the HR would call Yaoi for a background check, and Yaoi would tell her that Lucas had a problem with his character and that he had spoken ill of the president behind his back and was caught by the president himself. Lucas dejectedly fantasized about his miserable future as he walked to the floor of the president's office. When his colleagues saw him, they greeted him with a smile. Good morning, Secretary Lucas. It seemed that Mr. Leo had given him some face and hadn't announced his dismissal to the whole company. Lucas reluctantly replied, good morning. Lucas sat down at his own desk and waited for Leo to come and pronounce his death sentence. But he waited and Leo didn't show up all morning. Lucas checked Leo's schedule doubtfully. He had no other official business this morning and should come to the company. Leo was usually extremely strict with himself. Even if he didn't go out, as long as he was free, he would stay in the company and never delay his career because of fun. He shouldn't not show up. Lucas poked his head out to look at the office area of the president's office. All the assistants and secretaries were doing their work at their desks in an orderly manner without any abnormalities. What's going on? Lucas was nervous and simply sent a message to Henry, asking where the president was. Henry quickly replied, don't you know, Secretary Lucas? Mr. Leo is on a business trip temporarily today, and I'm accompanying him. Fortunately, Assistant Henry didn't block him. Lucas breathed a sigh of relief. Henry sent over the meeting schedule. Lucas took a look and found that there was indeed a meeting. It's just that Leo didn't plan to attend this meeting originally. But now he suddenly decided to go. Lucas subconsciously thought that maybe the president changed his decision temporarily in order not to see him, but then he thought he wasn't that important. This meeting would last for 3 days, which meant Leo wouldn't show up for 3 days. Lucas sat at his desk, feeling a little lost. No one told him to leave. What should he do now? Lucas could only do his own work at his seat first. When the president was away, the secretaries who stayed in the company were responsible for handling his visiting appointments and other changed schedules. Lucas didn't dare to slack off at all and tried his best to do it perfectly. He thought that at least he should leave gracefully. As a result, no one asked him to leave in these 3 days, and no one treated him differently. Could it be that the president didn't tell anyone about what happened before? Lucas was a bit confused. At that time, Leo was definitely very angry. Lucas could feel it, and it didn't seem like he was joking when he said he would fire him. But why didn't he issue the order? Lucas could only guess that Leo was annoyed by him and too lazy to deal with it. Also, he didn't want to make a big deal out of it. After all, it wasn't something to be proud of. He would be fired as soon as the president came back. Lucas could only work hard while packing up his things. When Mr. Leo came back, he could leave immediately. Lucas was both looking forward to and afraid of Leo's return. Henry sent him a message the night before, telling him that Mr. Leo had arrived in City S and would come to the company tomorrow. Lucas came to the company early, waiting for Leo's decision. Leo was extremely self-disciplined. As long as he came to work at the company, he basically arrived at the same time. Sure enough, Leo showed up on time. Lucas suddenly stood up from his seat, hung his head, stood there properly, and whispered, "Mr. Leo." Leo was wearing a coat, walking briskly, looking straight ahead. He walked past Lucas without even looking at him and went straight into his office. Lucas stood there stupidly, not knowing what to do. After a while, he slowly sat back and mechanically started to deal with his work. Strangely enough, even though the president ignored him, the work still came to him. He muddled through the morning like this. Then Leo came out of his office. Seeing Lucas, he said in a freezing tone of -273 degrees Celsius, "Why are you still here?" Lucas was so scared that he almost lost his soul. He stood up and said, "Mr. Leo." He shouted out what he had wanted to say the most in these days, "Sorry." He bowed to Leo, lowered his head and said quickly, "I know it's useless to say anything now, but I still want to express my apology to you. I'm really sorry. I'm absolutely sincere." After Lucas finished speaking, he didn't hear a response from Leo. He could only silently pick up the cardboard box that had already been packed beside him, ready to go downstairs to report to the HR and go through the resignation process. "Come back." Leo called him to a halt. Leo stared at the box in Lucas's arms. His deep, dark eyes were unfathomable and his emotions were hard to read. He said, "Who are you trying to impress with this?" Lucas blinked, not understanding. "Shouldn't he leave?" Leo gave a cold laugh. "Right, you don't like rhetorical questions." Lucas was so scared that he was stunned. Anyway, he had no image left in front of Leo. So he just gave up and said, "Mr. Leo, whether you want to punish me or do something else, just make it quick. My heart is so cold right now, colder than an ice cream." Leo said, "My heart is even smaller than the tip of a needle." Why did the president always use his own words to shut him up? Lucas stood there holding the cardboard box at a loss. Leo had been looking at him from beginning to end as if he was about to bore a hole through him. "Come in." Leo finally spoke and took the lead in striding back into the office with his long legs. Lucas was completely confused. After thinking for a while, he put down the box, tidied up his clothes, and followed Leo Indiana. Leo sat down in his chair. Lucas still stood in front of the desk, facing forward, just like before, posing as a good secretary ready to follow instructions. Leo got angry when he saw Lucas being so docile. He remembered the scene that day when Lucas was pounding the table and scolding the president for being crazy. He just wanted to punch this kid. Leo closed his eyes. For the sake of his own lifespan, he took a deep breath and said, "You're on the verge of being fired at any time." Sure enough, he couldn't escape. Lucas resigned himself and said, "Understood, Mr. Leo. But before you're fired, you still have to do what you're supposed to do." Lucas didn't understand again. Was he supposed to leave or not? Leo continued, "Also, don't talk nonsense outside." Lucas nodded desperately. Of course, the president also has to save face. Leo squinted his eyes and asked him, "Do you still dare to gossip behind my back?" Lucas shook his head desperately again and said, "No, I dare not, President. From now on, your image in my heart is both magnificent and lofty, more dazzling than the sun and shinier than the stars." Leo didn't say a word but just stared at Lucas. Lucas felt a chill down his spine under his gaze and lowered his head in shame, saying, "I'm not usually so talkative. I'm just anxious now." Leo glanced at him, leaned back into the wide office chair, rubbed the space between his eyebrows and said, "I won't go to the cafeteria for lunch. You order a lunch and have it sent up." Lucas quickly said, "Okay, Mr. Leo. Remember to disinfect the outer packaging." Leo waved his hand impatiently and Lucas immediately left the office sensibly. Lucas stood outside the president's office, touched his hair and couldn't figure out what it meant. Does he want me to leave or not? He didn't make it clear. Took Lucas a long time to figure it out. Is he giving me a reprieve? Lucas was still confused and didn't have a real sense of it. Anyway, a reprieve is better than an immediate dismissal. It's not easy to find a job these days. When he joined a big company like Shearway back then, he even called his hometown to announce the good news. It would be so embarrassing if he got fired. Moreover, a reprieve means there is room for maneuver. If he behaves well during this period, maybe Mr. Leo will be magnanimous and forget about this matter. While thinking, Lucas took the elevator to the cafeteria downstairs. The most important thing now is to get lunch for Leo. When Mr. Leo is full and in a good mood, he will look more favorably on him. Like many big companies with deep pockets, the cafeteria in the Shearway building offers a wide variety of dishes, as well as an abundance of desserts and beverages. When Lucas arrived at the cafeteria, instead of serving himself food with the employees, he went straight to the cafeteria manager on duty that day. When the cafeteria manager saw Lucas coming, he immediately understood and said, "Here to get lunch for Mr. Leo, Secretary Lucas." Lucas nodded with a smile and said, "Yes, thank you for your trouble." The duty manager gave instructions and immediately arranged Leo's meal. Leo occasionally comes directly to the cafeteria to show that he is close to the masses, but a separate meal is also prepared for him. Firstly, Leo has a cleanliness fetish. Secondly, it's just a joke. When the president says he is treated the same as everyone else, it's just for show. Of course, it still has to be separate. Lucas quietly stood aside waiting for Leo's lunch when suddenly he heard someone calling him. "Lucas." Lucas turned his head and saw Chloe walking towards him with a smile. Chloe walked up to him, covered her mouth and smiled shyly. "Can't I call you Lucas anymore, Secretary?" Lucas laughed. "No, just call me the same as before." Chloe nodded and asked, "Are you bringing lunch for Mr. Leo?" Lucas said, "Yes." He originally wanted to complain that he always did odd jobs, but thinking that he was still on probation, he didn't dare to say much and just smiled. Chloe brushed her bangs. Obviously, she had something to say but seemed hesitant. Lucas took the initiative to say, "Why are you having lunch alone?" Usually, Chloe always acted together with Nora. Only then did Chloe say, "Nora has been in a bad mood recently." She looked at Lucas embarrassedly and asked, "Lucas, you haven't come to our department since last time." After stuttering for a long time, she finally said, "Don't be at odds with Nora. She didn't do it on purpose." Only then did Lucas understand that Chloe thought he was angry because Nora had given him a cold shoulder last time and came here specifically to mediate. Lucas laughed and said, "I'm not at odds with her. I haven't gone to the administrative department because I've had other things to do recently. I'm just handling everything according to the rules." But Chloe didn't think so. She thought Lucas just disliked Nora. She bit her lip and whispered, "Before. During the time when you were transferred, Nora also wanted to change her position and did a lot of work to make it happen privately. But then an order came from above and you were transferred to the president's office. Naturally, the supervisor wouldn't agree to have fewer people. So her transfer fell through. So that's why." He was saying that he had no grudge against Nora, but her attitude was so bad. "So don't blame her. She'll be fine once she figures it out," Chloe advised. To be honest, after Lucas went to the president's office, he wouldn't have any conflicts with the people in the administrative department anymore. Whether to maintain the relationship or not didn't matter. But he didn't want to fall out with his former colleagues. So he said, "It's okay, Chloe. I don't take it to heart. When we have time later, let's have a meal together." Since he said so, Chloe knew that he had taken her words to heart. She gave Lucas a grateful smile. While the two were talking, Leo's lunch had already been packed. Lucas didn't dare to keep the president waiting, so he quickly picked up the lunch box and said goodbye to Chloe. Lucas stood in the elevator with the lunchbox, carefully pondering over what Chloe had said. He didn't really care about Nora. Instead, Chloe's attitude seemed a bit obsequious. Lucas sighed inwardly. He was just a small secretary, yet his former colleagues were so obsequious to him, afraid of offending him and deliberately coming to say hello just because he was by the president's side. He then thought that he had just offended the president. What if one day the president still couldn't let it go and fired him directly? He didn't know how those people would talk about him behind his back. Thinking like this, Lucas was stunned. Even he didn't want others to gossip about him behind his back, let alone Leo. He once again realized the seriousness of being caught speaking ill of Leo and lowered his head in shame. Anyway, getting a suspended sentence meant he wouldn't die for the time being. Lucas let out a sigh of relief, brazenly stayed on, and finally had time to contact his boyfriend Benjamin. In the previous few days, he was on tenterhooks every day and even dreamed of Leo knocking on his head at night. He simply didn't have time for a relationship. When he came to his senses, he found that he hadn't contacted Benjamin for several days. Benjamin wasn't really not concerned about him. He still sent him messages when the incident just happened. At that time, Lucas was in a bad mood and didn't reply much, so Benjamin just let him calm down. Lucas lay on the bed at night and called Benjamin. Benjamin's first words were in a sarcastic tone, "Secretary Yi finally remembers me." Lucas quickly tried to soothe his boyfriend. Wasn't there something wrong before? Only then did Benjamin show concern for Lucas, so does that mean the matter is all settled? Otherwise, you wouldn't have called me. Lucas turned over and lay on his back, crossing his legs on the bed and saying, "I don't know either. It's okay for the time being." Lucas briefly told Benjamin about the matter. Benjamin pondered for a moment and said, "So, your president is quite magnanimous." Lucas quickly nodded and said, "Yes, I think so too. The president is really nice. Now he also speaks well of Leo behind his back and no longer dares to complain about the president." Benjamin obviously knew what he was thinking. He laughed a few times and then said, "Since he doesn't care about it with you, you still have to work hard." Lucas made a fist and said, "Of course. I still want to further strive for a reduced sentence. It would be best to be acquitted." Benjamin didn't dwell on this with him and continued, "I originally thought your president was an old man. I didn't expect him to be so young. In this way, I'm actually more at ease." Lucas didn't understand and asked, "At ease about what?" Benjamin didn't say a word. An old man might still covet Lucas's good looks. That Leo seems so arrogant at first glance, and there's no shortage of beautiful people around him. He won't care about Lucas. Moreover, Benjamin thought that Leo not caring about it with Lucas this time was not out of magnanimity, but because he didn't take Lucas seriously. So he felt relieved. Naturally, Benjamin wouldn't tell Lucas his real thoughts. He just casually talked about something else and changed the topic. After Lucas finished the call with Benjamin, he slumped on the bed and spaced out. He suddenly remembered something. He turned over and looked for a long time. Finally, he found the Mr. Leo doll. He sat on the edge of the bed, hugging the Mr. Leo doll. Looking at Leo's big face on the doll's head, he said, "Mr. Leo, remember our agreement. You're magnanimous and not angry anymore." Lucas was very nervous. He hugged the doll tightly in his arms and thought about it. After a while, he realized something was wrong. Leo's profile photo was pasted on the doll's face, which was now in intimate contact with Lucas's chest. Lucas quickly let go of the doll, smoothed out Leo's photo, and murmured, "What a sin, what a sin." He carefully placed the doll on the bedside, adjusted a comfortable position for it, and bowed to the doll. The person who provides for you should be worshipped. Everything was normal in the next few days, and Lucas became complacent. Who said that Mr. Leo is as narrow-minded as a needle's eye? He is so magnanimous. He doesn't hold grudges and is very forgiving. He has a heart as broad as a prime minister's. Lucas praised the president in his heart and thought that he would really be acquitted in a while. One day, Leo called Lucas to his office and asked, "Why haven't you submitted the investigation data of the supply chain yet?" Some time ago, the upstream supplier, President John, mentioned the changes in import and export policies, and the supply chain department of Yaoi is formulating an adjustment plan. Lucas said, "I'll go and ask, Mr. Leo." Lucas called the supply chain department and then returned to Leo and said, "Mr. Leo, because the data from Ling Automobile hasn't come down for a long time, the supply chain department can't make the accounting. They said they have to wait." Yaoi Technology focuses on new energy batteries. Its biggest partner is the automobile company, and many things require the cooperation of downstream automobile companies. All they know is to wait. Leo didn't look happy. He waved his hand impatiently and said, "Tell them we can't wait. They must submit it within half an hour." Lucas had been with Leo for more than a month and immediately saw that he was about to lose his temper. He quickly said, "I'll go and urge them again." Just as Lucas was about to go out, Leo called him back. Leo pursed his lips, his eyes were gloomy, looking as if a dark cloud was hanging over him. He said, "You go to Linghang Automobile in person." Lucas was stunned. "Me?" Leo said, "The supply chain department isn't lying. The key lies with Linghang." Pointing at the door angrily, he said, "You going there is the same as me going. Let's see if Linghang still dares to delay." Actually, this matter is not very appropriate. No matter what, it's not Lucas' turn to do this. He's not the person in charge of the connection. He's just a secretary. But Leo didn't seem to be joking. He really seemed to be angry. So Lucas had to go to the partner company to get the materials in the capacity of the president's secretary. Maybe Mr. Leo wanted to send an imperial envoy to awe the partner. Lucas didn't have his own car and couldn't use the president's car. He had to borrow a company car temporarily, which took some time. He drove to Linghang Automobile Company in a hurry. Automobile companies are generally located in the development zone, which is relatively remote compared with the urban area. Coupled with the traffic jam, Lucas drove for more than an hour to reach the destination. The headquarters of leading automobile is actually in another province. There are only a few production lines and an operation department in City S. When Lucas appeared in the operation department of the company, the people there were stunned. "We sent the data to your supply chain department an hour ago." After seeing Lucas' business card, the person in charge of the other side didn't know what Shirwade meant by sending the president's secretary here. He could only explain carefully, "Moreover, it's not confidential data, so there's no need to stamp it. You can just send it online directly." Lucas paused for a moment with an impeccable smile on his face and said, "I see. Thank you for your cooperation." Lucas didn't stay there any longer. He quickly walked out and sighed, looking at the company's car. He thought to himself that it might be an oolong, a mix-up by accident. But he also thought that the president wouldn't make such a mistake. Now that the data has returned to the company, Lucas could only accept his fate, get back in the car and start driving back. Unfortunately, he encountered the evening rush hour. The road was extremely congested. This time, it took Lucas more than 2 hours to reach the company. When he arrived at the company, he rushed to take the elevator and returned to the president's office. Lucas knocked on the door. Leo asked him to come in. As soon as he entered the door, he saw the supply chain supervisor chatting and laughing with Leo. "The data from leading automobile shows that our strategy is correct. Now we can rest assured." The supervisor smiled happily. "I couldn't sleep for several nights when the import and export policies changed before." Leo was sitting in the office chair, looking relaxed, with a faint smile on his lips. His eyes looking at the supply chain supervisor were full of admiration. "You've done a good job." The president was in a good mood. His attitude could even be described as gentle and pleasant. It seemed that the anger just now was an allusion to Lucas. Seeing Lucas come in, the supervisor said kindly, "Secretary Lucas, do you have something to do?" "I'll finish soon." Leo looked calm and said indifferently, "Don't be in a hurry. Finish talking about the previous matter first." The supply chain supervisor quickly continued to discuss with Leo, and Lucas stood silently on one side. As a result, the supervisor got more and more excited as he talked. He was sitting on the sofa with his back to Lucas. After a while, he even completely forgot that there was someone else in the office. Leo neither made a sound to remind the supervisor nor let Lucas leave. He just listened attentively to his subordinate's work report. Lucas stood in the office without making a single sound. He just stood there for half an hour. 5 hours had passed since Leo gave him the order to go on a field assignment. During this period, he had been on the go without even taking a sip of water. Lucas stood there and finally understood. The president had known about the data issue for a long time and also knew that the supply chain department could handle it well. Neither leading automobile nor the supply chain was wrong. The one in the wrong was him. He was wrong in failing to notice in time that the data was transmitted online. He also didn't immediately confirm the situation with the supply chain. Moreover, he failed to realize that the president did it on purpose. The president was just torturing him. He was bound to suffer a setback. If not today, then tomorrow, all depending on Leo's mood. Lucas had originally made up his mind not to speak ill of the president. But at this moment, he couldn't help thinking to himself. There was no such thing as magnanimity or letting bygones be bygones. Sure enough, the president was as petty as could be.